There's a prevailing idea in all of culture that a person is split into the bodily desires, the so-called monkey brain, guided by intuition and emotion, and the reasonable mind. Think Freud's id and ego and superego. This is fair, this is useful. However, what usually follows is a belief that the bodily instincts are unhinged and need to be controlled by your reason. So you will have people attempt a difficult diet and at some point they just stop. And they think, I shouldn't have done that, I was just undisciplined. I need to do it again, this time actually stick to it. And they do it again and at some point they again just stop. When asked about why they stopped, they often give simple answers like, I just wasn't disciplined enough. They will hold on for dear life to the idea that the consciously made decision to lose weight was reasonable and the unconscious decision to stop was just an accident. And so they learn nothing. Instead, we should take the decision of the unconscious mind seriously. Take the unconscious mind as knowing something we don't, and adjust our plans with this insight in mind. For example, if you stopped a diet, that could be because you were just unhappy not having enough food. Maybe you deprived your body too much and you feel unreasonable, miserable. So dieting is hard, but what are we talking about? Losing a couple of pounds or kgs is nothing crazy. You need a little discipline, sure, but you shouldn't notice any warning signs. You shouldn't feel noticeably worse, your calories shouldn't have to drop that much, your performance at the gym shouldn't really suffer, etc. If you are indeed seeing those signs, then chances are you're just doing something wrong. Weight loss, like many things in life, is an art. You need to learn how to change seemingly unimportant variables to create a whole that works for your case. Now, dieting is a subtle art, but the most brutal example of this is working out. I honestly think the reason why people don't work out is in 90% of cases that their programming sucks. A guy gets a personal trainer, he jumps on a weight loss program, so he has less energy than before, goes to the gym 4 times a week for an hour, and does a total of 30 sets with 3-minute rests in between, plus 30 minutes of cardio. After 3 months, he's lost 2 kilograms of fat and built half a kilogram of muscle. His squat went from 40 kilograms to 60 kilograms. He didn't stop because he didn't have what it takes. He stopped because he didn't want to put in so much effort for a result that still classifies as normal. The PT has failed. Newbie gains are extremely fast. That's natural. The guy could have gone in those 3 months from a 40 kilogram squat to a 100 kilogram squat easily, and did a month of harder dieting in the last month and lost 2 kilograms of fat. Of course, you would need to learn to diet properly first instead of jumping on a crash diet, but it's a thought experiment. It's so crazy how a big complex problem is often just you not doing something right. Like if you hated biking to work because it takes a lot of time, you get sweaty, you have to apply a lot of effort, it's boring, you hate sports, it reminds you of your ex and how your dad went on a biking trip and never came back, all that. And then you realize that your gearing was all effed up, you change it and suddenly it becomes pretty fun and all those negatives become invalid. You need to refine your strategy based on your seemingly trivial desires. Take the message seriously and use that as input into your plan. If you're tired and really don't want to do something, maybe it's actually not that crucial to do it and you would be better off getting some rest. But on the other hand, maybe you accept that if you do it, you will indeed be tired the next day, you will have to sacrifice some sleep, it won't be healthy and will have long-term consequences, but you decide that it's more important to do it anyway. Or what's actually more probable is that you're just bored and you don't actually want to do it. For example, if you're bored studying, maybe you're learning something that's actually not relevant to your life and goals, or more probably, you're not studying properly. You're just reading the textbook like a novel or something like that. See, it all comes together now, every video I've made. Another example, cleaning your room. Maybe it's not that you just don't feel like doing it. Maybe you actually don't want to do it. You just feel like you should. You could instead work on something you see as more valuable. Sure, it's great to live in a clean space, but what's more important? Maybe it makes sense to clean up as rarely as possible if that gives you some extra time to work on the more important things. But what about the long-term effects of living in a dirty space on how you feel about yourself? You can pull this psychological thread for a long time, probably never coming to a definitive solution, but maybe figuring out some things along the way. And also, that's actually only one thread. There is another. Maybe you just suck at cleaning. Seriously, think about it. If you suck at it, then it can easily take you twice as long to do it. It's frustrating because you know there's a better way to do it. It requires a lot of effort, and when all that adds up, it just doesn't make sense to do it. And at one point you figure out a better way to do it, then it suddenly crosses the threshold and it becomes okay to dedicate a very small portion of your life to cleaning your house. The added effect is that if you know that the way you're doing something is indeed the most efficient way of doing it, then it's much easier to accept the hustle and apply yourself harder. It's like your body has a built-in mechanism that prevents you from doing bullshit. This reminds me of that one Jeff Nippard video about posture with Sam Spinelli. People really want to have quote-unquote good posture, which supposedly has all those benefits, but no one does it because they're lazy. But if it did, in fact, have those benefits, I bet people would be much more inclined to do it. People don't sit and stand straight all the time because it's stupid. As Dr. Spinelli said, to paraphrase, posture is posture. Good or bad is a question of morality. People often think that if they just stuck to their logical strategy that they came up with themselves with no prior experience, then they would have been successful, perhaps making it unnecessarily hard, but still would technically achieve their goal. It's just that seemingly no one ever actually sticks to their plan. But there are people with anorexia. There are people who ignore their body for competitive reasons, who stick to their goals no matter what. And what happens? Some of them actually die. So getting stage-ready lean will never be healthy and people make an informed decision to do it anyway. But if death is fairly probable, then that's not a good strategy. If you're actually dead, they're not going to display your body on the stage. There are surprisingly many people who stick to their goals even if it's a bad choice, and it ends up being much less romantic than you would imagine. Actually, this is one tactic that I've used a couple of times for breaking habits. Just write out why you're doing it, all the benefits, why you actually want to do it. Almost like someone is trying to convince you to stop, but you tell them why it's actually smart. Don't be like, being drunk, I guess, makes me feel happy for a moment, but only for a moment. Be like, being drunk makes me think and puts me in the mindset that I want to be in the first place. And being sober just doesn't allow me to be myself. Once it's laid out, you can accept giving that up and you'll be able to make a decision. The thing is that the human mind can basically only work with a couple of pieces of information at a time. It's why you're writing out benefits and drawbacks when making a big decision. It's usually not about figuring them out, you know them already, but it's to lay it all out on one page, and then you can properly make a judgment considering all the reasons for or against equally. If you watch Dr. K's videos on YouTube where he's talking to people with bad habits, that's about the first thing he tries to make people realize. If you go to a therapist with an addiction or practicing self-harm or something like that, they're going to ask you why you're doing it. What does it give you? And probably suggest a different solution. So if you make that a natural part of your thinking with every decision you make, you immediately have a bunch of other possible options at hand without having to go through this whole process. So the next time your body tells you something that contradicts your reason, actually listen to what it has to say instead of immediately disregarding it and make an informed decision based on that. Maybe you figure something out, maybe you don't, and you just have to grit your teeth. But even then, you've learned something and can go on with more understanding. Thanks.